Sydney Harbour Bridge, Australia. Before the city fully wakes, before the ferries begin their steady rhythm across the water, there is a moment when Sydney seems to hold its breath. The sky slowly brightens over the harbour, and in that quiet transition between night and day, a massive steel arch begins to emerge from the shadow. It rises not as something new, but as something eternal, anchored in the landscape and shaped by history, and silently watching over the city it connects. The Sydney Harbour Bridge does not appear delicate. It does not try to blend into the horizon. Instead, it declares its presence with confidence. A vast steel arch stretches across the water, powerful and unbroken, holding the weight of trains, cars, and cyclists, and footsteps above one of the most beautiful harbors in the world. And yet, despite its strength, there is something strangely elegant about it, as if raw industrial power has been shaped into a form of quiet beauty. When the first light touches its surface, the bridge begins to change. The steel framework catches the sun in sharp angle, creating patterns of light and shadow that shift with every passing minute. Below it, the water reflects the growing brightness of the sky, while sails and ferries move slowly beneath the arch, emphasizing the scale of what stands above them. It is in this contrast between movement and stillness, between water and steel, that the bridge reveals its true character. But what makes this structure is so captivating is not just its size or its function. It is the feeling it creates when you stand near it. There is a sense of perspective that shifts everything. The city feels larger, the harbor feels deeper, and time itself feels slower, as if the bridge is stretching not only across the water, but across moment. From a distance, it looks like a simple curve, but as you move slower, the complexity reveals itself. Thousands of steel components come together in precise pattern, forming an arch that seems almost impossible in scale. It is both engineered and artistic, both mathematical and emotional. And the more you look at it, the more it feels like it belongs not just to Sydney, but to something far greater, the idea of connection itself. There are bridges that help you cross water, and then there are bridges that change the way you see the world while you are crossing them. The Sydney Harbour Bridge is the second kind, and once you see it rising over the water, you begin to understand that it is not just part of the city, it is part of its identity. The Sydney Harbour Bridge stands proudly over Sydney Harbour in New South Wales, Australia, connecting the city's central business district with the North Shore. It spans the deep blue water of one of the world's most famous natural harbors, linking two sides of vibrant and ever-growing metropolis. Positioned beside the Sydney Opera House, it forms one of the most iconic skyline pairings in the world, instantly recognizable in photographs, films, and global media. Completed in 1932, the bridge was built during a period when Sydney was expanding rapidly and needed a stronger, more efficient connection between the northern and southern parts of the city. Before its construction, transportation across the harbor relied heavily on ferries and which were often crowded and limited by weather and capacity. The bridge was designed to solve this challenge, creating a permanent and reliable link that could support road traffic, trains, bicycle, and pedestrians all in one structure. What makes the Sydney Harbour Bridge truly special is not only its function, but its form. It is one of the largest steel arch bridges in the world, and its massive curved structure had earned it the affectionate nickname, the coat hanger among locals. This simple nickname reflects both the bridge's distinctive shape and its place in everyday life in Sydney. It is not just a landmark viewed from afar, It is a structure that people actively use, cross, and experience daily. The bridge design is a powerful example of industrial engineering from the early 20th century. A single massive arch spanned the harbor without the need for cable or supporting tower in the water, allowing ships to pass freely beneath it. This clean, unobstructed design was both practical and visually striking, giving the bridge a sense of openness that complements the wide expanse of the harbor below. Over time, the Sydney Harbour Bridge had become far more than a transportation route. It had evolved into a national symbol of Australian growth, resilience, and ambition. It represents a moment in history when engineering and vision came together to create something that would not only serve a practical need, but also define the identity of an entire city. Today, it is one of the most visited landmarks in Australia. Tourists walk across its pedestrian pathways, climb its upper arch through guided experiences, and gather along the harbor foreshore to watch its silhouette change with the light. Whether seen at sunrise, glowing under midday sun, or illuminated at night, the bridge continues to capture attention with its bold, present, and timeless design. But beyond its fame and recognition, the Sydney Harbour Bridge holds a deeper significance. It's a reminder of how infrastructure can shape a city identity, how engineering can become art, how a single structure can connect not just for two sides of a harbor, but the lives, stories, and experiences of millions of people. And as the city continues to grow around it, the bridge remains a constant presence, strong, steady, and unforgettable. The Sydney Harbour Bridge dominates the sky of Sydney with a presence that is both powerful and unmistakably elegant. Its massive steel arch rises in a perfect curve from one side of the harbour to the other, forming a continuous web that feels somewhat natural, as if it were shaped by the land and water themselves, rather than built by human hands. The structure is immense in scale, yet that its form is so clean and unified that it never feels chaotic or overwhelming. Instead, it creates a sense of order across the wide expanse of water it spans. The shape of the bridge is defined by a single, sweeping arch, which carries the entire weight of the structure and everything that moves across it. From a distance, these arcs appear like a bold stroke drawn across the sky, connecting two distant points with confidence and clarity. Beneath it, the vertical steel trusses descend in precise pattern, forming a dense lattice that gives the bridge both strength and texture. These repeating geometric elements create a rhythm that becomes more visible the closer you look, revealing the complexity hidden within a seemingly simple silhouette. Its color is a deep, industrial gray, often shifting softly depending on the light. On bright sunny days, the steel reflects a soft silver tone, glowing gently against the blue of the sky. During cloudy weather, it takes on a darker, more dramatic appearance, blending with the muted tones of the atmosphere. At sunrise and sunset, the bridge can appear almost warm as golden light washes over its surface, highlighting its curves and casting long shadows across its structure. At night, it transforms again, illuminated by carefully placed light that trace its outline and emphasize its monumental form against the darkness. Below the bridge lies Sydney Harbour, one of the most famous natural harbors in the world. Its waters are deep, wide, and constantly in motion, reflecting the changing sky above. Ferries move steadily across the surface, leaving short trails behind them, while smaller boats and sailboats drip through the open water. The harbor itself feels alive, a constant flow of movement that contrasts beautifully with the solid, unchanging presence of the bridge above. On one side of the harbor sits the Sydney Central Business District, a dense cluster of modern skyscrapers, historic buildings, and busy streets. The city rises directly from the water edge, creating a dramatic urban backdrop that emphasizes the scale of the bridge even more. Glass towers reflect in the sunlight, while older stone structures add texture and history to the scene. This mix of old and new gives the skyline a layered identity, one that feels dynamic and constantly evolving. On the opposite side lies the North Shore, a more residentially and green area with rolling hills, parks, and quieter neighborhood. From curtain viewpoints, you can see patches of greenery rising behind the shoreline, softening the edge of the urban environment. The contrast between dense city and natural landscape enhance the visual impact of the bridge, placing it between two very different worlds and allowing it to connect them seamlessly. In the distance, the horizon opens toward the Pacific Ocean, giving the entire scene of a sense of vastness. The sky above Sydney is often white and clear, stretching endlessly over the harbor. On some days, clouds drip slowly across the arch of the bridge, bright light obscuring its upper structure before revealing it again, adding a sense of movement even in stillness. From above, the experience changes completely. Standing on the bridge or viewing it from its upper arch, the city unfolds in every direction. The opera house sits nearby like a cluster of white shell on the water, while ferries move in carefully timed paths below. The scale becomes more apparent, revealing how the bridge is not just part of the city, but a central axis that organizes movement, space, and perspective. What makes the visual impression of the Sydney Harbour Bridge so powerful is not only its size, but the way it interacts with everything around it. It does not sit apart from the city. It's become part of its rhythm, its light, its movement, and its identity. Every angle reveals something different. Every moment of the day changes appearance, and every perspective adds a new layer to its character. It is not just a structure crossing a harbor, it is a frame through which Sydney itself is seen. The history of the Sydney Harbour Bridge is deeply tied to the story of Sydney itself, reflecting a period of rapid growth, ambition, and transformation in the early 20th century. Before the bridge existed, crossing Sydney Harbour was daily changes. The city was divided by a wide stretch of water, and the only practical way to travel between the central business district and the north shore was by ferry. While ferries were an essential part of the life in Sydney, they were increasingly unable to keep up with the demands of a growing population. They were affected by weather, limited in capacity, and unable to provide the consistent connect that a modern city required. As Sydney expanded, the need for a permanent crossing became more urgent. Discussion about building a bridge over the harbor had been taking place for decades, but it was not until the early 1920s that a serious plan began to take shape. The goal was not only to improve transportation but also to create a landmark that could symbolize the city's progress and future potential. After extensive planning and international competition, the design chosen was a massive steel arch bridge, a bold and ambitious solution that would become one of the most important engineering projects in Australia's history. Construction officially began in 1923. The project was enormous in scale and required years of preparation before the main structure could even begin to rise. One of the first major tasks was the construction of the foundation and pillars on either side the harbor. This would support the immense weight to the steel arch that would eventually span the water. At the time, the technology and technique required for such a large steel structure was still relatively new, making the project both innovative and risky. One of the greatest challenges during construction was the sheer scale of the steelwork. The bridge required more than 50,000 tons of steel, which had to be manufactured, transported, and assembled with extreme precision. Each section needed to fit perfectly into the growing structure, as even small misalignment could compromise the stability of the entire arch. The steel was fabricated in parts and then carefully riveted together on site, a process that demanded both skill and patience from thousands of workers. Another significant challenge was the environment itself. Sydney Harbour is a busy waterway with strong tides, constant ship traffic, and unpredictable weather conditions. Construction teams had to work around these natural forces while ensuring safety and maintaining progress. Working at height added another layer of difficulty, as sections of the bridge rose higher above the water, exposing workers to wind and challenging conditions. The most iconic moment of construction was the gradual building of the arch. Instead of being assembled from the top down, the two sides of the bridge were constructed outward from each shore, slowly extending toward each other over the harbor. This method required precise engineering calculation to ensure that both halves were met exactly in the middle. As the two sides approached one another, tension and anticipation grew, both among the engineer and the public watching from the shore. In 1930, after years of careful construction, the two halves of the arch finally met in the center of the harbor. This moment marked a major milestone in the project, symbolizing not only engineering success but also the realization of a long-held vision for the city. The completion of the arch was followed by the installation of the deck and final structural element, bringing the bridge closer to completion. The Sydney Harbour Bridge was officially opened on March 19, 1932. The opening ceremony was a major public event. Attended by thousands of people, it was a moment of pride for the city and the nation, marking the completion of one of the largest and most ambitious infrastructure projects of its time. The bridge immediately transformed transportation in Sydney, providing a reliable and efficient connection between the two sides of the harbour and reducing dependence on ferries. Over time, the bridge also became a symbol of resilience. It was built during a period that included economic hardship, and its completion during the Great Depression made it even more significant. It represented hope, progress, and the ability to achieve great things even in difficult times. Today, the history of the Sydney Harbour Bridge is remembered not only for its engineering achievements but also for the determination and vision that made it possible. It stands as a reminder of what can be accomplished when ambition meets precision, and when a city dares to connect its future with bold and lasting design. The Sydney Harbour Bridge is one of the most iconic examples of steel-through-arch bridge, a design that combines immense structural strength with a bold and elegant visual form. Unlike suspension bridge, which rely on cable hanging between towers, or cable-stayed bridge that use direct tension cable to support the deck, the arch bridge design transfer weight outward along its curved steel rib and down into massive foundation on either side of the harbor. This creates a self-supporting system where the entire structure works in balance, with the arch itself carrying the load of everything above it and below it. At the heart of the bridge's uniqueness, it is enormous steel arch, which span approximately 503 meters across Sydney Harbour. At the time of its completion, it was the widest long-span bridge of its kind in the world. Even today, it remains one of the largest steel arch bridges ever constructed. The arch rises gracefully above the water in continuous curve, forming a powerful visual and structural backbone of the entire bridge. This single arch design eliminates the need for a pier in the water, leaving the harbor completely open for ships, ferries, and marine traffic to pass freely beneath it. The bridge is constructed from more than 52,000 tons of steel, making it one of the heaviest steel arch bridges ever built. Each component was carefully fabricated and assembled using millions of rivets, a construction method that was standard in early 20th century. This rivet, driven by teams of skilled workers, permanently joined the steel section together, creating an unified structure capable of withstanding enormous loads. The precision required for this process was extraordinary, as every piece had to align perfectly to maintain the integrity of the arch. One of the most remarkable engineering features of the bridge is its self-supporting arch construction method. During building, the two halves of the arch were constructed outward from opposite sides of the harbor. They gradually extended toward each other, supported temporarily by cable anchored to the ground. When the two halves finally met in the center, the structure became self-supporting, locking itself into place through the force of compression. This moment represents one of the most critical engineering achievements of the project, as the stability of the entire bridge depends on perfect alignment. The bridge design also includes large granite face pillars at each end of the arch. While these pillars appear to be structural support, they are actually not essential to the bridge strength. Instead, they serve primarily aesthetic and stabilizing function, giving the bridge a sense of visual completion and anchoring it within the city skyline. The decision to include them was driven by architectural consideration, ensuring that the bridge would feel monumental and balanced rather than purely industrial. Another unique feature of the Sydney Harbour Bridge is its multi-purpose functionality. It is not only a road bridge but also carries 8 lanes of vehicular traffic, 2 railway lines, pedestrian walkways, and cycle paths. The integration of multi-transport system into a single structure was forward-thinking design choice for its time and continue to make the bridge one of the most efficient transport corridors in Sydney. The railway lines running through the center of the bridge are particularly important, providing a direct connection between the city center and the North Shore. The bridge is also designed to handle significant thermal expansion. The steel naturally expands and contracts with temperature changes, and over such a large structure, this movement can be substantial. To accommodate this, engineer incorporated expansion joint and carefully calculated tolerance into the design. These features allow the bridge to move slightly without causing structural stress, ensuring long-term durability even under changing weather conditions. In terms of records, the Sydney Harbour Bridge held the title of the widest long-span bridge in the world for many years after its completion. While it may no longer hold that record today, it remains one of the most significant achievements in early 20th century engineering. Its combination of scale, strength, and simplicity continue to be studied and admired by engineers around the world. Beyond its technical specification, one of the most unique features of the bridge is its relationship with the city itself. It is not isolated from its environment but deeply integrated into it. The art frames view of the harbor, the city's skyline, and the Opera House, becoming part of the visual identity of Sydney. It is both a functional piece of infrastructure and defining architectural landmark. In the end, the Sydney Harbour Bridge is unique not just because its size or design, but because how its elements work together. Its arch, materials, construction method, and multifunctional use combine to create a structure that is both practical and iconic. It is a bridge built not only to carry movement but to define a city. The Sydney Harbour Bridge is far more than a feat of engineering or vital transport link. Over time, it has become deeply woven into the cultural identity of Australia, accumulating stories, traditions, surprising facts, and emotional meaning that go beyond its physical structure. It is a place where history, everyday life, and national symbolism intersect, creating a landmark that feels alive with memory and meaning. One of the most well-known facts about the bridge is affectionate nickname, the coat hanger. This name comes from its distinctive steel arch shape, which resembles a simple clothes hanger when seen from a distance. What began as a casual, humorous description quickly became part of everyday language in Sydney. Interestingly, even though it was originally extended as a joke, the nickname has become a term of endearment, reflecting how closely the bridge is connected to people who live around it. Another fascinating aspect of the bridge is that it is not just a road crossing. The structure carries 8 lanes of vehicle traffic, 2 railway lines, a pedestrian walkway, and a cycle path, all within a single massive arch. These multi-use designs make it one of the most important transport corridors in Sydney. Every day, hundreds of thousands of people cross it in different ways, by train, by car, on foot, or by bicycle, often without stopping to think about the engineering beneath them. The bridge also has a unique place in global celebration. Every New Year Eve, Sydney Harbour Bridge becomes the centerpiece of one of the world's most famous firework displays. The arch is used as a platform for spectacular pyrotechnics show that the broadcast internationally, turning the structure into a glowing symbol of celebration and new beginnings. During these moments, the bridge is not just infrastructure, it's become a stage in the sky, connecting millions of viewers around the world through shared experience. One of the most famous cultural experiences associated with the bridge is bridge climb. This activity allows visitors to climb the upper arch of the bridge under guided supervision, reaching the top of the steel structure for panoramic views of Sydney Harbour. The experience has become one of Australia's most popular tourist attractions, offering a rare opportunity to physically engage with a working piece of infrastructure while standing hundreds of meters above sea level. For many visitors, it is not just a climb, but a memory that stays with them for life. A construction of the bridge itself is filled by human stories. Thousands of workers here evolved in creation during the 1920s and early 1930s, many of whom worked in difficult and dangerous conditions. Safety standards at the time were not what they are today, and the project required immense physical effort, especially as workers climbed and assembled steel sections high above the harbor. Despite the risk, the project was completed without any major structural failures, a testament to both engineering precision and human determination. There is also a symbolic moment in Australian history associated with the bridge opening in 1932. The official ceremony was famously disrupted when a man on horseback, Captain Francis Devgroot, rode forward and cut the ribbon with a sword before the official premier could do so. This unexpected event became one of the most talked about moments in the bridge's early history, reflecting the strong emotion and political tension surrounding the opening of such a major national project during the Great Depression. Over time, the bridge had also become a symbol of resilience and unity. It was built during a period of economic difficulty, yet its completion provided job, hope, and a sense of achievement for the people of Sydney. In this way, it is often seen not just as an engineering project, but as a landmark that helped define a generation. Another interesting fact is how often the bridge breathes within the city. Every day it carries an enormous flow of traffic, yet it also accommodates maritime activity beneath it. The balance between road, rail, pedestrian movement, and shipping traffic makes it constantly active structure. It is not static or passive. It is always in use, always part of the city rhythm. From a cultural perspective, the bridge is deeply embedded in Australian identity. It appears in films, postcards, painting, and tourism campaigns, often alongside the Sydney Opera House. Together, these two landmarks form a visual shorthand for Australia itself, instantly recognizable across the world. But for locals, the bridge is more than an image. It is part of daily life, a familiar presence that marks journey, meeting, and moment of transition. Even the experience of crossing the bridge can feel meaningful. Walking across its pedestrian path offers a sweeping view of the harbor, where ferries move below and skyline stretches into the distance. Commuters often pass over it without stopping, yet many still glance at the view, reminded the unique position they occupy between city and water, movement and stillness. At night, when the bridge is illuminated, it takes on a different personality. The steel arch glows softly against the dark sky, and its reflection shimmers across the harbor waters. In this moment, it feels almost symbolic, less like a machine of transport and more like a connection between light and darkness, past and present. In the end, what makes the Sydney Harbour Bridge so fascinating is not only its engineering or scale, but the layer of meaning has accumulated over time. It is a structure that carries people across water, but also carries stories, emotion, and identity across generations. It is not just a bridge that connects two sides of a harbor. It is a bridge that connects a city to its history and a nation to its imagination. The beauty of the Sydney Harbour Bridge is not something that can be captured in a single angle or a single moment. It is a presence that changes constantly with light, weather, and emotion. It is not only seen as a structure of steel, but felt as a living part of city rhythm. What makes it so powerful is not just its size or its engineering, but the way it shapes the experience of Sydney itself. At first glance, the bridge is defined by its strength. The massive steel arch rises with confidence over the harbor, creating a silhouette that feels both industrial and artistic at the same time. There is a raw honesty in its design, so unnecessary decoration, no attempt to disguise its purpose. Yet within its simplicity lies a quiet elegance. The curve of the arch is smooth and continuous, almost natural in its flow, as if it belonged to the landscape rather than being imposed upon it. This balance between power and grace is one of the reasons people are drawn to it. In the early morning, the bridge is often wrapped in soft light and gentle atmosphere. The harbor is calm, the water barely moving, and the city slowly begins to awaken. At this time, the steel structure feels almost quiet, as if it's resting. The first rays of sunlight touch the arch and gradually reveals its details. The intricate lattice of steel beams, the precision of its construction, the scale that becomes more apparent as the light strengthens. There is a peacefulness in this moment that contrasts with the energy the bridge will later carry throughout the day. As daylight fully arrives, the bridge becomes part of the city motion. Cars move steadily across its lanes, trains pass through its center, and pedestrians walk along its pathway, each experiencing it their own way. From a distance, this moment gives the bridge a sign of life. It is no longer just a structure, it's become a flow of activity and a connection between two sides of a city that never stops moving. The harbor below reflects the sky, and ferries glide beneath the arch, reinforcing the sense that everything is in motion, yet perfectly balanced. One of the most striking aspects of the bridge beauty is how it frames the city around it. From many viewpoints, the arch acts more like a window, drawing the eye toward the skyline, the opera house, and the water beyond. It does not compete with these elements. Instead, it organizes them into a composition. The framing effect gives the entire harbor a sense of unity, as if the bridge is holding the city together visually and emotionally. At sunset, the Sydney Harbour Bridge becomes something almost poetic. The city shifts into deep orange, soft pink, and fading blue, and the steel surface begins to reflect these changing colors. Shadows lengthen across the structure, emphasizing its curves and geometry. The water below mirrors the sky, creating a layered reflection of light, movement, and structure. In this moment, the bridge feels less like a piece of engineering and more like part of painting that is constantly being redrawn by nature. As night falls, the transportation becomes even more dramatic. The bridge is illuminated with carefully placed lights that traces outline against the darkness. The arch glows softly, standing out against the night sky while it still maintaining its sense of solidity. Below, the harbor becomes a field of reflection, city lights, moving boats, and a shimmering water blending into a scene that feels almost cinematic. The bridge does not appearing at night. Instead, it's become more defined, more symbolic, and it represents stability in the middle of a moving, glowing city. Seasonal changes also add depth to its beauty. In summer, the bright Australian sun enhances the contrast between steel and sky, making the bridge feel bold and vivid. In autumn and winter, soft light and occasional mist can give it more atmospheric and dramatic appearance. Even rain changes its character, darkening the steel and creating reflective surface that make the structure feel heavier and more grounded. Each season reveals a different emotional tone, showing that the bridge is not static, but responsive to its environment. But beyond all visual changes, the true beauty of the Sydney Harbour Bridge lies in what it represents emotionally. For many people, it is a symbol of arrival, of coming in to the heart of Sydney and seeing the city unfold across the harbour. For others, it is a symbol of connection, linking not just two physical points, but experiences, memories, and moments in life. It is part of daily routine of commuter and a landmark for visitor and a silent witness to millions of personal stories that unfold beneath and across it. There is also an artistic quality to how it exists within the landscape. The bridge does not try to hide its engineering nature. Instead, it celebrated the exposed steel, the visible structure, the bold arch. All of these elements become part of its visual identity. It is industrial yet beautiful, functional yet emotional. This duality is what makes it timeless. In the end, the beauty of Sydney Harbour Bridge is not found in a single view or a single moment. It is found in the way it changes with light, in the way it frames the city, and the way it becomes part of people's life without ever asking for attention. It's not just a structure crossing water, it is a presence that turns movement into meaning and a city into a living image. As the journey across the Sydney Harbour Bridge comes to an end, that remains is not just the image of steel rising over water, but the feeling of having moved through something far greater than a simple crossing. It is a reminder that some structures are not only built to serve a purpose, but to shape the way a city is seen, felt, and remembered. Standing beneath it or looking at it from afar, there is a sense that the bridge is always in conversation with its surroundings. The harbor moves beneath it, the city grows around it, and yet it remains steady, anchoring the entire scene with quiet strength. It does not change its position, but it changes how everything else is perceived. The water feels wider, the sky feels larger, and the city feels more connected when viewed through its presence. Over time, the bridge has become more than a landmark. It has become a part of daily life in Sydney. For a time, it is the route to work each morning, a familiar path that marks the beginning and end of the day. For others, it is a place of discovery where the view opens suddenly and the scale of harbor becomes overwhelming in the best possible way. And for many, it is simply a symbol, a shape that represents home, identity, and belonging. There is something deeply human in the way the bridge exists. It was built through effort, precision, and vision, but today it feels almost natural, as if it had always belonged to the harbor. The steel arch does not feel cold or distant. Instead, it feels integrated into the rhythm of the city, absorbing the changes of light, weather, and time. It stands through storm and sunlight, through silence and movement, always present and always watching. As they turn into night, the bridge becomes even more reflective in its presence. The light's hand trace its structure do not overpower it. They gently define it. In the darkness, it's become a glowing outline against the sky, a quiet reminder that even in absence of daylight, connection still exists. The harbor below mirrored this transformation, scattering reflection across the water like fragment of the city energy. And yet, beyond all this visual transformation, what makes the Sydney Harbour Bridge truly unforgettable is the emotion space it creates. It invites people to pause, even bright fly, and look at the world from a different perspective. From its height, the city feels both vast and intimate. From its center, movement feels both fast and kind. It is a place where contrast between meet and coexist without conflict. There is a certain permanence in its presence, but also a sense of community. Generation have crossed it, watched it, worked on it, and lived alongside it. It had witnessed change without losing its identity, and in doing so, it had become more than steel and structure. It had become memory shaped into form. Perhaps that is why people continue to admire it, not just as engineer or visitor, but a human being responding to something larger than themselves. It represents the happens when ambition meets patience, when design meets landscape, and when function meets meaning. As the final light fades over the harbor, the bridge remains steady, silent, and complete within itself. It does not need to announce its importance. It simply exists, and in that existence is connect everything around it. Because in the end, the Sydney Harbour Bridge is not just a way across the water. It's a way of seeing the world differently, where distance becomes connection and structure becomes memory.